Blending modes are one of the most powerful tools that you have in your toolkit as a designer. And whenever you're working in an Adobe program, in this case Illustrator, and you create multiple elements that are overlapping, the program has to make a decision about how those elements are going to blend together. So if I create a circle, this one is kind of a teal color, then I'll create a copy of that. This one I'll make yellow. If I move the yellow circle over the teal circle, then you'll see that the yellow circle blocks the teal color. That makes sense because the yellow circle is on top. And the reason it's blending in this way is because we're using what's called the normal blending mode, which is the default in all of these programs. And you can see that by, if I select on the yellow circle and click on opacity in the control panel, there's this drop down menu and it says normal. And if I hover over it, you can see that the tooltip says blending mode. Can also get to this by going to the appearance panel under window. So if I go to window and bring up that appearance panel, can get the same thing by clicking on opacity. In this case, I can actually look at the opacity of just the stroke or just the fill or the entire element together. So when I click on that, I get the same panel with the same drop-down menu for blending modes. And once again, it's set on normal. So with the normal blending mode, it is going to block whatever is underneath. So there's not actually any blending that's happening here. This is somewhat similar to if you were working with cut pieces of paper. So if I had two paper colors, one for blue and one for yellow, and cut out circles and put the yellow circle on top of the blue, then the yellow circle would just simply block the blue color. So this isn't the same for all blending modes. So if I go ahead and select the yellow circle and then change the blending mode, I'm going to do it in the control panel, go down to multiply instead of normal, it's actually going to blend those colors together. So what I've done is I've told the program to use different rules for the way the yellow circle blends with elements underneath of it. So since I set it to multiply, it's going to use a different algorithm, and the multiply algorithm works somewhat similar to the way ink is applied on a page. So if you think about, printing some cyan on a page, and then you went back and print yellow on top of that, you would end up with sort of this green color. And that's what's happening here. So that is a really interesting way to blend things together. And using these blending modes is going to give you a lot of control on how, these elements interact with each other. Blending modes can also be used with photographs. So over here I have a photograph of a pencil with some shavings, and the photograph has this kind of white border around it. Okay, so if I take this pencil and I'll take the cyan color and put it on top, since cyan is still set to the blending mode normal, it's just going to simply block that photo. But if instead I take the yellow circle, which is set to the multiply blending mode, and put it on top of the photo, it's going to blend everything underneath with the yellow, which is a really cool effect. If I then select the cyan color again and change that to multiply, and then overlap that, then we're going to get an overlap of all the colors, and we're going to see the pencil through those colors since the the shapes on top are all set to multiply. So this is a certain style of transparency that we're looking at, but again, it's creating a really cool effect, and there's a lot that you can do with these blending modes. You can also set photographs to blending modes. So I'm going to take this photograph, and I'm going to go up to Object and place it on top. So arrange and send to front. Okay, so now that it's in front, if I put it over the shapes, the border of the photograph, which is white, is going to block the underlying shapes, which is not what we want. So if instead I take this format and change it to multiply, so now the photograph itself is in multiply, you can see that the white sort of melts away. And that's one of the behaviors of the multiply blending mode, is that it sort of gets rid of white. That's because the algorithm ignores white and kind of stacks all of the non-white colors on top of each other and multiplies them together to create darker versions. So this is a good trick if you ever run into a photo that has white in it and you don't want that white to be there. sometimes a multiply can help you get rid of that problem. The counter to multiply is screen. So where multiply gets rid of white, screen actually does the opposite and gets rid of black. So in a screen blending mode, you can see that all of the black actually disappears and the white sticks around. So wherever the white is in the photograph, it covers up what's underneath, and the black parts of the photograph are actually blending through to the underlying color. So the black in the pencil is picking up that cyan circle. Or if I move it over the yellow, the black is picking up the yellow of that circle. So there are a lot of different blending modes. I'm not going to go through all of them, but a good way to use blending modes is to just simply go through them and try them out. And you'll be surprised the types of interesting things that you can come up with blending modes. So I'm going to put one more color here, and then we can just sort of play around with some different blending modes. If I select all three of these, I can change them all at the same time. So this is what multiply looks like. If I go to color burn, you can see that it has a slightly different behavior. If I go to lighten, it also has a different behavior. Darken is the opposite of lighten. And darken and lighten simply select the darkest or lightest versions that are being layered together and just use that. So I recommend playing around with all those blending modes and seeing the different things that you can create using them. Remember, it's not just vector shapes interacting with each other, it's also the way that vector shapes interact with photographs. A lot of times using blending modes can really unlock a lot of possibilities with the way that you use photographs, so definitely take advantage of that.